Traditions are a game changer. Traditions have the power to turn a simple moment into a memory. Bring a whole city together. And they're even what inspires us at Tostitos to make our masa the traditional way. Starting with whole corn kernels. No artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. We craft our chips for whatever your tradition is. Tostitos. Tradition matters. Official chip and dip sponsor of the NFL.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Look, there are a lot of players I love this upcoming football season, from Tyler Warren to Jamison Williams. Boy, I even like Roma Dunze this year, and it is fun and simple. The whole experience on PrizePicks, it's a great game. Download the app today and use the code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's the code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
We're back. It's Tuesday, September 9th here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew. DFS is a cruel game, Betz.
It really is sometimes, man. It really, really is. Some good weeks, some bad weeks, some fine weeks. People asked how I did. This is hilarious. I lost $12 on DraftKings.
Okay. Not
made
terrible.
$13 on FanDuel. So I put in a lot of effort this week to literally do nothing. So sometimes that's the way it goes. But we had people in Discord that had a really nice week. And I'm excited about that for sure. And I know a lot of people got to use the tools in the DFS pass and use the optimizer and all those things. A lot of good feedback. So very excited with how the first week went. But sometimes it's so funny how like you spend all this time thinking about stacks and, you know, what games are we going to attack? And it's like, it doesn't even matter. It literally didn't even matter.
You want to brag about your positive ROI to your wife and say, hey, this week I was doing my job, but more importantly, I was putting this time and effort. Dollar, honey. It was honest work. Honest work.
What's the old saying? Can't go broke making a profit?
Yeah. I mean, hey, things are trending up. If these trends continue.
Week 2 is going to be my week.
$2. Oh, man. Depending on how week 1 went for you, we hope that you're able to look at your process. That's what Betz and I are going to do right off the start. At the very beginning is review. Just say, hey, here's how things went. And then move forward. The best part about DFS is there's always a new slate. So the Thursday night matchup, you're going to be writing that one up between the Commanders and Packers. That's a fun one. Talk about the main slate. Lots of different ways. A doubleheader on Monday night.
Oh, we're back
next
with
week.
The doubleheaders.
Yeah, that's too late for us on the East Coast. 10 p.m. I love the Chargers. And Keenan might be mad at me, but that's way past my bedtime.
Dude, the Whoop score is going to be bad for that Tuesday if I stay up. We'll see.
People ask me, okay, since this is your job, you obviously have to watch every single game. And I respond by saying, there are some second halves that I don't stay awake for. And last week, I don't know if I told you this, I fell asleep in the second half of the Eagles-Cowboys game during that.
I think a lot of people did.
And apparently I didn't miss anything at all.
Dude, that was the weirdest game. Because in the first half was so fun, right? Both defenses couldn't stop anybody. And then the weather delay. And it was a snooze fest. What I did as a, old dad, Kyle, was I actually took a nap during the weather delay.
Okay. I respect that.
A nice 45-minute nap. Woke up, about a half hour of the game left, real time watching, and right back to bed. So all things considered, it wasn't terrible. But, dude, Sunday night, oh my goodness. I almost went to bed early. And I was like, you know what? Let's just see what Josh Allen has for one more drive. And then, of course, we know how that went. What a game. That was unbelievable. So I'm excited because we get those quarterbacks, the guys that can actually break the slate, Allen, Lamar, on this slate. Last week, we didn't have those guys. So I'm very excited to talk about that in some good games. So should be fun, man.
Yep. Let's jump into the review.
Weekly Rewind.
So in this section on the Tuesday podcast, Betz and I are going to quickly review where we went wrong, right, and we have articles on the website. So if you're one of those people that need a visual representation of what we're saying, you can go on the fantasyfootballers.com. Every Monday, I write a cash review article, and Betz writes a small field GPP review, which is new this year, and you kind of get to see our process. My biggest takeaway, and we get this from people, but I just want you to understand, our goal is honesty. Just like, here's exactly what we did. Here's the money I lost because it was a bad week for me in cash. Here was my process of going about it. Here's also what was going on in my life. So I had 4 baseball games this weekend, including 2 at 1 o'clock on Sunday for my boys. By the way, 4-0.
Oh, no big deal. No big deal.
I mean, they were crushing. It was a good weekend for that. But in cash, it really came down to your 1v1 or 2v2 plays. Like, did you pay up for someone like Jamar Chase, which I did? Didn't go so well. The rest of my lineup probably looked 80%, 85% very similar to what a lot of people played. It's like, you're going to play James Conner. You're probably going to play Achane or Chase Brown. The wide receivers were the rookies. Like, if you didn't have Emeka Egbuka, that felt like a giant mistake. Like, if you faded him in tournaments, I get that. But in cash, felt very similar. At tight end, you probably played Njoku. And then at quarterback, did you pay up for Jaden or did you play Trevor Lawrence? So it really came down to, what did you do at the flex spot? And for most of the week, we talked about Christian McCaffrey. And if you listen to Friday's podcast, it was probably me saying, I'm playing Christian McCaffrey. Spoiler, he was not in my lineup. And I gave my reasonings in the article. I played him a ton in tournaments, which helped me only be minus 30 for the week bets. So I invested my money and I really just deposited to DraftKings. That was really my thing. But tournaments, I did okay, made up for my losses in cash. But it really was a 1v1 or 2v2 decision that made your week.
Yeah, I think this Christian McCaffrey example is podcasting is great. It also has downfalls because when we record our show, literally like 2 hours later, the Christian McCaffrey news breaks. And then, of course, you know how that goes. And I thought that that's a perfect example of like what we say on the show on Fridays sometimes changes because of, news that happens late in the week. So in Discord, we talked through that. A lot of people were saying like, hey, do you still forget about McCaffrey in cash? I personally did not. I just did not think in cash games where you're not trying to win a tournament, you just need to beat one person to head-to-head or something like that. The re-injury risk was not worth it. At the same time, this was one of the most unique opportunities in tournaments to say, hey, what if this is just a scare and he's actually fine? And those are the type of bets I want to make when the roster percentage is very low. So because we all knew, Achane, Jonathan Taylor, James Conner, Chase Brown, like all those guys were kind of the safe cash plays, I had a pretty good feeling McCaffrey would come in pretty low owned in tournaments. I played him in my small field for that reason, just because it was like, hey, we're not trying to beat one person, we're trying to take down the whole thing. This could be a unique opportunity. I thought the run out for him was pretty clean just because of, Kittle leaving and Jennings leaving early, so like he was the offense. But dude, we've talked about this on previous shows. Like Kyle Shanahan is a true sicko. This man basically missed the entire season last year because of injuries related to his Achilles and calf. And this year pops up on the injury report. No big deal. Leads the entire NFL in touches in week 1 with 31 total touches. Nobody else saw more than 23. So Kyle Shanahan is a sick individual, and that might not change this week because of what's going on in San Francisco. But I did want to highlight that for McCaffrey in tournaments. I thought that was a really sharp play where you're more willing to embrace the risk when roster percentage is low. As far as the other cash decisions, I thought once Darnell Mooney was rolled out, Drake London became an obvious standout, incredible play. Not the best box score in the world. The Falcons, they never let you down. Not upset about the money line.
Dude, I told you I wanted no part of it.
Just shaking his head. But I thought if you didn't have Egbuka in London, that was probably truly a mistake for cash games. They were just so strong. I played Trevor Lawrence. I do regret that, not just in hindsight bias with obviously knowing the results, but it's like, man, we talked, Jaden Daniels at 7K is just so cheap and underpriced. And it wasn't like the slate was so tightly priced that you couldn't get to him. I felt like for me personally, that was a mistake. So that's one thing that I wish I did differently this week.
And the adage that we usually say, Betz brings this up probably even more than me, that things are never as good as you think they are, as bad as you think they are, something like that.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, so in cash, don't overreact to just week one. Don't throw everything out. Don't go chasing certain players. And we'll talk about some of the salary standouts for week two. But I was fortunate. I played Christian McCaffrey and JSN in tournaments.
Nice.
And so I was able to come back and not feel like it was a total loss of a day. It is still funny that we talk about this on the podcast. And we have bad weeks. That's why we're honest. It's a full circle moment of telling, each other, hey, remember that whole week where we spent talking about stacks like Miami and they didn't matter?
Woof, dude. That was like, you can't even put into words how bad the vibes are right now in Miami. It's so terrible. Speaking of, in my small field tournament, I actually played a Daniel Jones to Tyler Warren stack.
That was my best lineup too, by the way.
Danny Dimes. Who could have thought? Colts look like geniuses for not playing Anthony Richardson. I think it speaks to two things. One, how terrible this Dolphins secondary is. And then the other thing is, we talked all week about, is there a chance this Buka Price is just too cheap? What if he's just that good? Play it before you see it kind of thing. We talked about that with Matthew Golden. We didn't talk about this. I didn't hear a lot in the industry of other people talking about, well, what if you just play Tyler Warren? What if he's just that good? And I think based off his preseason usage and his draft capital and his college production and all these things, I think he's just that good. So that's why I played him, because he came in, I think 6% in small field. So I played that stack. Unfortunately, I didn't have the best run out. I played a double bring back with Achane and Jalen Waddle, because I guess I just can't help myself, and I like pain with Waddle every week. But yeah, obviously not the result you were looking for if you played at the Dolphins. So we'll see. Interesting spot here to come back home and take on the Patriots.
But I do want to point people to Betts' article, because even though he played Jalen Waddle, didn't have Achane, you still were able to hit the cash line in this tournament, and you weren't just depositing DraftKings. You just had to get a couple things right. And, Daniel Jones, Tyler Warren, CMC is okay, here's how I'm going to differentiate myself from the rest of the crowd. So make sure you head to the website if you want that full write-up. But we did have some people on Discord that won big. If you are new to the podcast, every Tuesday we get to celebrate with certain members. And all we're doing here is just saying, hey, you did a great job. We want to celebrate with you. Sometimes they give us credit. And yes, we get to talk about it on the podcast, but I didn't click the buttons. I didn't deposit in their account. I didn't tell them which tournaments to do. Well, I guess I kind of did. Our first one's from Benny Hanna, who is a longtime Discord member. He said, fellas, we got one. My first takedown on DK. Big thanks to the group. Seeing Buka, seeing Puka, who was actually only played by 4% of the field here, but a $600 win. And then another one from There Is No Try. Ended up plus 6K in this one. And this was also a Danny Dimes team with Christian McCaffrey.
Beautiful. We're in lockstep there. Also had Bijan, which awesome leverage on Drake London, and just a contrarian. There's nothing contrarian about Bijan, right? He was a top 3 pick in fantasy drafts just 12 days ago. It's not like he's a sneaky play. He projects quite well. It's just that this is a good reminder that in DFS, there's a lot of groupthink, and roster percentage will condense around a handful of plays in some weeks. And just the quote-unquote optimal builds weren't having Bijan. I thought Bijan was a really sharp tournament play as well.
And then last one here from Pablo Cox. He said, highest I've ever placed in a tournament. Appreciate the DFS pass and everyone here in Discord. The Monday night game, he had your boy, JJ McCarthy, in at captain. And that was pretty good. How'd you feel overall about Monday night game?
It was a weird game. If you're a McCarthy truther like I am, they had us in the first half, not going to lie. He came out, he looked like he was making his first career start, right? Just so much pressure, and I don't know what the issue was, but they were snapping it with less than a second on the play clock every time. It just, and he was sped up by it and everything. So I thought in the second half, obviously the pick 6 was pretty egregious. After that, calmed down. Kevin O'Connell, he's such a good head coach, man, and such a good play caller, and kind of knows how to rally around his guys and put his guys in position to succeed, which I thought was huge. So I actually think if you're a McCarthy non-believer, what you saw in the first half, you're like, see, there it is. And if you're a truther, you saw the second half, you're like, see, there it is. So I don't know, obviously, where this is going to go for him, but I think if you are a believer like I am, you're obviously encouraged by what you saw. in the second half. But like I've said before, I think once you get Addison back, once you get your left tackle, Christian Darrisaw back in there, I think this team is going to make some noise as far as the offense is concerned.
Every single slate, there's conversation going on in Discord. So for the Monday night game, this was a 4-2 build that got them second place in a tournament. I just think like it's so cool to be able to sharpen your skills with other people. And a lot of times people have questions about the optimizer. It's like, oh, the easiest way to do that is to talk through certain settings and builds real time in the Discord. So make sure you check that out, ballersdiscord.com. But we're moving on to week 2.
State of the main slate.
All right, Betz and I are going to look at the main slate this week and kind of to give you the lay of the land of, how you want to approach this. So remember, the main slate is the early games on Sunday, and we have 3 later games. So it's a 12-team slate or 12-game slate this week with the doubleheader on Monday night. The highest total game of week 2 on the main slate is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Jaguars. This has been bet down as at 50.5. I'm seeing 49.5 right now. Both of these teams, I just want to throw this out there. This sentiment after week 1 is, hey, I thought we were supposed to get a lot more fantasy points from these teams, especially at the wide receiver position. It was a little disappointing if you played Trevor Lawrence this past week in cash or Jamar Chase. Oh, wait, both of those players I played in cash. I did feel great, just throwing out the Jaguars here, that Travis Etienne was one of my bigger stances in large field. Now, I didn't have teams that got as far, but I had a ton of Travis Etienne at like 3-4%. He didn't score a touchdown, but like you got a huge game from him, and now Tank Bigsby's gone. So this game is probably going to profile as the most popular of the week, or at least the one that people gravitate towards.
Yeah, I think it'll be the most popular just because, again, when you look at pricing, like Jamar Chase is basically the same price. Of course, the Travis Etienne price came up a little bit, but it doesn't account for the fact that Tank Bigsby is now gone. It's a good matchup. And then T. Higgins, I don't know if you saw his price. He came down quite a bit. He is quite cheap. So I think once again, like people are going to be excited to play Etienne. And then on the other side, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, all 3 once again are in the cash conversation. So I think it's a very easy game stack. I'm not sure my take on that quite yet. We'll talk Friday about it, but I think there's going to be a lot of roster percentage here. So if you are going to play it, I would just kind of be starting to think about ways to get different in that game, or just in your lineup in general if you're going to play it.
One of the things I've been doing behind the scenes, this is gonna really make me sound nerdy, is that I've already started comparing defensive coverages for these teams and the changes from what they did in 2024, and then compared it to week 1.
Oh boy. Okay.
And these 2 teams are very different because they have new DCs. So it's just, there's a lot of things we can't just use last year's statistics, Bex. I don't know what you're doing if you're still playing 2019 fantasy, but this isn't the same.
Oh man, Kyle, you're something. I'll tell you what. All right, so hit us with what's the hand in the dirt take here? What are the Bengals doing? What are the Jaguars doing?
The Jaguars last year were like heavy on man coverage. Like that was their thing that they were daring other teams. Like we're going to play man coverage, and spoiler alert, they were terrible at it. They were bottom 4 against all major positions: quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends in terms of fantasy points given up. That's like really hard to do. I don't think people realize that like with defenses, a lot of times we talk about a pass funnel or a run funnel. You're like good or bad at the other. They were terrible at everything. And so they completely switched from being fully man coverage to let's go into more zone schemes, cover 3 stuff. So I'm excited when we break down that game to kind of figure out where the leverage points are, because Chase didn't move in salary. You mentioned Higgins. Chase Brown saw 52% of the team's total targets and rush attempts. Like he was a workhorse. So the Bengals, with the highest team implied total on the slate, there's so many ways to attack. And the Jaguars, I think, like are still cheap. Like Brian Thomas Jr. is inexpensive. Hunter's not expensive. Brenton Strange is going to be a cash play. Travis Etienne. So like you really could go so many different directions.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Chase Brown was the only running back that touched the football, or carried the football, I should say, in that game. No other running back saw a carry. So that's pretty good.
No, it's like my biggest thing, my 1v1 decision that came down to me in cash was I played Chase over Chase Brown. And that was really the difference for me in cash. That was the cash line, was about like 10 points. So, what other teams this week have some of the highest team implied totals?
Well, the Ravens play the Browns, and they are projected for 29 points at home, favored by 12.5. Baltimore has the highest team total on the slate. The Browns have the lowest. One of the lowest. So we'll talk about that, maybe an onslaught for Baltimore. We talked about the Bengals at 26.5, Buffalo 26.3, the Lions in the Ben Johnson revenge game against the Bears at 26, and the Cardinals 25.5 against the Panthers.
Oh, speaking of Cardinals, you and I, that was our pick last week for Survivor Pool.
Well, if you take a look at this, I tented my pants.
Ooh, man. I'm sure that you felt just great the whole time, not sweating anything in the fourth quarter with the Cardinals.
Dude, Juwan Johnson almost buried us. He almost buried us. My wife, it was funny. We got home. We were at a party like for the first hour and a half of the games. We got home. We settled in with the kids, and I finally was able to watch. And she's like, "Why are you watching the Cardinals game?" I was like, "This is important." She's like, "For what?" And I just kind of like gave her like a look. She's like, "Oh, this, you have money on this or something." I was like, "Well, it's an investment. Kyle and I are investing in the Cardinals. You know, there's nothing that could go wrong here." But yeah, we got pretty lucky on that one. So we'll see what we do in week 2. But we are still alive for 1 week at least.
And now we never have to pick the Cardinals again.
Thank goodness. Oh my gosh.
That's really the best part about Survivor Pool. It's like, okay, I'm past this team. I never have to be tempted by them again because the Cardinals are one of those teams that could have easily lost that game.
Oh yeah.
So we will give our Survivor Pool pick later this week and give our reasonings, which probably are half vibes, half like actual stats.
More vibes guy myself.
For Survivor Pool?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I just kind of feel like this team, you know, they can take care of business. I really like their coaching.
That's something you would say about not the Dolphins.
That's something you would say about the Broncos. Oh, I just think they're coaching. They're just better coaching. They have good defense.
There you go.
So let's take a quick break and then we'll analyze the rest of the slate.
At RX Bar, they believe in simple nutrition without the BS. That's why they said no to artificial ingredients and yes to deliver intentional, transparent nutrition. Try their original 12-gram protein bar, the nut butter and oat bar, or minis. RX Bar, the proud sponsor of No BS. Use code RXBAR on rxbar.com for 25% off. Subject to full terms and conditions and to change. Valid until September 30, 2025, and may not be combined with other offers. See rxbar.com for full details and limitations.
Let's first talk about the most popular games that are going to be stacked this week. We mentioned Cincinnati and Jacksonville, but we got to throw out Baltimore and Cleveland. The total's at 45.5, so it doesn't sound crazy, but Lamar is way too cheap. Like it going in and writing this article, the first look article where I look at all the salaries, the first thing I saw is, why is this man $7K? Like what are they trying to do to us?
I mean, all the big guns at the top are back. Josh Allen, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, they're all too cheap. So you could play any three of those, and I'd say that makes a lot of sense. But Lamar sticks out just with the team total. You know, the only concern is like if Henry rips off, you know, these 50-yard touchdown runs, then maybe you're stuck holding the bag a little bit. But I think he's just going to project unbelievably well at that price.
Let's not forget that last year, okay, these two teams, so they play each other every single year twice. In week 8, the Browns somehow won 29-24 on a Cedric Tillman bomb touchdown.
Was that Jameis?
That was Jameis.
Yeah, of course it was.
And so Flacco's, you know, he's going to chuck it. He's going to give us that. The Browns provide for us some cheap garbage that for us to play in DFS.
Cheap garbage,
it's great.
Kyle. That's mean.
Dude, PPR garbage, though.
Oh, okay.
I mean, for real, like Judy, Tillman. We're going to talk about Harold Fannin in the salary standout section. So many different ways to go there. Our boy Dylan Sampson, after seeing 8 targets.
20 touches.
It's awesome. So you got a team that we know can hit their team implied total in the Ravens, and then the Browns team that at least has enough fight, and you've seen them be competitive. Right now, I would take Cleveland plus 12.5.
Kyle, you're wild, dude. Yeah, the home dog catching 12.5 points. That would make sense to me in divisional matchup.
Dude, the Ravens are a weird team. I just want to throw that out there. I was like, they look dominant, just completely dominant in the first half of that game. where like the first drive, it's like, okay, it's not great. And then the rest, their offense could not be stopped. But let's not forget last year in week 2 at home, they lost 26-23 to the Raiders.
Raiders, yeah. And they were a popular Survivor team that week for obvious reasons.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how is that possible that team, Aiden O'Connell, who like Gardner Minshew, it was Minshew at the time. It's like, how did that team come into Baltimore and win? As it's just like, I just want to throw that out there. It's not a slam dunk, especially against the spread at least.
Yeah. NFL, man. Anything can happen.
All right, what do you think will be one of the sneakiest games of week 2?
So this is going to sound terrible based off of what we just saw a couple days ago, but I'm kind of interested in Miami and New England. And, watching the Dolphins, it's hard to say anything positive. Like, it truly was a complete disaster. And at the same time, some people played Drake May on FanDuel, and Cash, we talked about him just being so cheap. And, when you did that, it felt underwhelming. I thought Drake May airmailed a bunch of throws, was like fine, but like not what you were hoping for, especially because he was kind of a consensus like sleeper pick in season long, a few weeks ago. But this is just like you said, nothing in the NFL is ever as like incredibly good or as bad as you think it might be, and things can change in a moment's notice. I think the field is going to be scared off in this matchup based off what we just saw. But if you go back and you zoom out, historically, Miami at home in September has been very, very good. And if the field doesn't want to play it, I could see playing that stack in a tournament as a contrarian way to attack this slate. And then on the Vikings side, like, I think this could be another one of those play it before you see it type of things. Like, the run game was wildly inefficient. At least Trayvon Henderson, we know, has the juice. Like, did they give him a little bit more of that work here in the first game? Kayshon Boutte was awesome in that game. So I think there's a couple like contrarian bring back options potentially if you did want to stack it. Again, it feels gross, but I think a lot of people are going to feel that way.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up New England later because I kind of like their team implied total, even on the road. Miami, have you ever heard that the internet's really good at its job? Like, just really good.
The internet is undefeated.
Yeah, dude, I lost it where somebody sent me one like, hey, prayers up for Tua. Oh, he's okay. It's just that he's playing like, and then insert the word. I was just like, man, the internet's really, really, really good. But Miami is not as bad as they were in week 1. That's how I'm going to take it too. And so I do think that you could find some contrarian plays if you want to have a Drake May single stack with a Miami bring back. So I totally get that. I wanted to bring up Arizona and Carolina. The total's at 45, or about at 45. Arizona has a 25.5 implied team total. So you brought them up earlier as a top 5 team. Chuba is quite cheap. McMillan's price didn't move very much. So I think this is another spot where there's going to be some correlation plays here. Maybe this game does slow down, but I think there's enough scoring here where you could find a route. If it's Chuba and Trey McBride, or if, one of those combinations. Like, I will be circling this game as it's in the afternoon window. It's not going to carry as much roster percentage as some of the other games. And I think it can be that afternoon hammer. Which game do you want to be underweight on?
I went with Philly and Kansas City. Super Bowl rematch. The Kansas City, it's so sad, man. All offseason, there's, again, what if they get back to this deep passing attack? What if this is the explosive offense we all had hoped we'd see? And, obviously, Rashee Rice suspension takes some issues there. And then now we have no Xavier Worthy, most likely, and Hollywood Brown and Tyquan Thornton are running routes, and Kelsey's kind of the underneath guy. Like, it's going to be dink and dunk again with what we saw last year for the most part. I just think they're going to complete a lot of passes, which Vic Fangio will let you do and keep it in front of you. The clock is just going to keep moving and it's going to be slow. And then the other side, of course, Saquon is the game plan. And, I don't want to overreact to one game from Kevin Patullo, the new OC, but it was not great from a play call design standpoint, I thought. And just for context, the Eagles called a 64% neutral rush rate in week 1. This team is obviously built around Saquon. So I think you're going to see that on the Eagles side, and then just dink and dunk from Mahomes on the KC side. So I actually see this one potentially coming in under and being kind of a slog.
Do you feel like this game has the name value in the afternoon slate? Because this is going to be the game they promote all week from all the commercials and everything else. That in DFS, we can look at it look at the prices and go, well, this doesn't really fit. Like, I don't need this game the way that I might some other ones. Now, Hollywood Brown's going to get clicked a lot because 16 targets will do that for you. But yeah, I could just see this game. People will want to use the script from the Super Bowl, and we're obviously not going to do that. Okay, here's another question for this game. Will it be one of the top 4 games we preview on Friday's podcast?
Oh, let's see. We're definitely going to have to talk the Ravens game. We'll talk Bengals and Jaguars. So that's 2. I could see us talking Lions, Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this
maybe
will probably
Bills,
be number 4.
Jets.
Maybe Bills, Jets. It's on the fringe. It's on the fringe.
Okay, so in other words, when you and I talk about it, it'll probably be, we need to mention this, but we might not have it be the game that you need.
Well, I do think pricing makes it kind of tricky. Like, if all the Eagles guys were priced up, I'd be like, we can probably pass on this. But we already mentioned Hurts is super cheap, $6,800. It was a disaster in week 1 for A.J. Brown, but he is now $6,600. I truthfully can't remember a time when he's been that cheap. And Devonta Smith is down at $5,600. So it's pretty easy to stack these guys up. So that's the only thing that's like, maybe the price is there, but the vibes I feel on it, like, doesn't feel like a shootout to me.
All right, I'm going to bring up San Francisco at New Orleans. New Orleans had some fight. We'll at least give them that. The Spencer Rattler-led Saints had some fight. But the 49ers, the vibes are bad. Other than playing CMC, which you can do every single week, it's just not great with Kittle. If Purdy's out, it's the Mac Jones show. Jennings, the report, like, I watched that game, the entire second half, like, fully, because I was very much on CMC watch for my tournament teams and my redraft teams. They were saying that he couldn't even move his arm. Like, he could not lift his arm on the sideline. It was one of those things where we thought maybe he'll come back in the game. It was like, no, this dude's not even getting up off the bench. So do we know anything about Jennings or because Pearsall might be a clickable name. I get that, and CMC, but I feel like I'm going to be underweight on a game that's now at 41.5.
Yeah, and the line moved from San Francisco being favored by 6.5 to 4.5 with all the injury news. As far as Jennings, I'd be very surprised if he played. He was actually running a route, and like the safety or defensive back, whoever it was, jammed him, and he kind of like hit the top of his left shoulder, and you could see him immediately in pain. So it wasn't even like a contact tackle type of play.
Jammed.
He did get jammed, and then they had, so the chain of command basically in like medical imaging, you always get an X-ray first, check out if there's any fractures, whatever. Generally speaking, for these types of injuries, that's cleared. Then he gets the MRI, that comes back clean. But now there's news that they're waiting on a CT scan, which is not generally normal procedure for most of these injuries. CTs are kind of used to like evaluate like complex bone injuries. So I'm concerned, like, are they evaluating in the shoulder joint, the shoulder blade, like what's going on here? So I'd be surprised if he played, which means there's a real chance we're looking at Mac Jones, Ricky Pearsall, Kendrick Bourne.
MBS?
Maybe. I mean,
the boys?
This could be bad. So I see why you're underweight. There's no way McCaffrey is not going to project for like 26 touches with what's going on, but they might be incredibly inefficient. We'll see.
Okay, this is a good time for me to at least mention Betz' Injury Blitz podcast, which comes out on Fridays, like Friday afternoons, Friday evening, where Betz gets to look through all of the Friday practice reports and give you up-to-date injury information from somebody who's actually knows what he's talking about as a licensed physical therapist. So for me, it's really important to know I'm not making decisions based on vibes with injuries or this is what I think or what I feel. So Betz gives his best estimate. When we talk about stuff on the podcast that comes out Friday, you get to go back and then look at it a second time after the practice report. So if you are a Foot Clan member, that is an extra bonus podcast that you get every single week on Friday. And that is very helpful for us when we go to Saturday and make our best plays, right?
Yes, sir. And if you're kind of wondering like what it is, it's just a solo podcast. It's just me. And it's usually like somewhere in the 15 to 20 minute range, sometimes 25 if it's a lot of injuries, but it's pretty short, kind of sweet, and right to the point on kind of what you need to know. And I usually do it from like a redraft lens, but I do kind of provide some stuff on like, in my redraft league, like I'm definitely playing this guy. It's worth the risk. And then I do provide a little bit of context on DFS, but mostly it's like a redraft focused thing. But yeah, those injury updates, so helpful to know kind of like what to expect when you get to the weekend.
All right, which team are you confident hitting their over? I put down New England. They're at 21.5, which is pretty low considering how bad the Miami defense looked this past week. You listed that as a sneaky game. The thing about Drake May and company, like they were right there in the mix. Our boy Travion Henderson saw 6 targets. That was pretty nice. I did look this up. Ramondre had to pass block like more than anybody in the league. Henderson didn't have 1 pass block, despite everything we know. Isn't that wild?
Even though he's like largely considered the best pass protecting back in this class. That's hilarious.
So, yeah, I think the Patriots are a sneaky team this week if you wanted to look that direction, or at least I'm building as if they're going to come through with 22 plus points.
Okay, I like it.
What about you?
I'm going to go off the main slate for the one that I like the most here. I'm going to go with the Vikings. I know they get short rest and all those things. They're taking on the Falcons. I think for this,
whoa, buddy.
But the Vikings are at home. So home opener, right? Better crowd environment for McCarthy and company. You build on the second half and you go and take on a Falcons team that it's got some issues. I think that there's actually a chance that for this to hit, I think that we need Drake London and Darnell Mooney in there, because what you saw last night from the Vikings is they are willing to run a balanced offense until McCarthy kind of gets his feet wet. A lot of Jordan Mason, a lot of Aaron Jones. So I could see this coming under if the Falcons still guys are ruled out with injuries. But if they're in there, I think they'll have enough firepower to go back and forth.
I sent you my picks early in the week for Survivor Pool, and I was like, dude, I think we should take the Vikings.
But the only thing that I am hesitant on that is the short rest. But you know the Falcons better than I do.
We're traveling to Minnesota against a good defense with a banged up Drake London and maybe not Darnell Mooney.
But you're forgetting about the most important factor on the Falcons side.
Just moxie and guile and gumption.
Kirk Cousins' revenge, baby. He's going to have his helmet on the entire game on the sideline. And not just on with like the chin strap unbuckled, helmet on, chin strap fully buckled, ready to go. Man, I love Kirk. Yeah, it just feels trappy, doesn't it? I don't know. We'll talk about it, I guess, as the week goes on.
We are not a trappy team, I'll tell you that.
But it seems so obvious. It seems too obvious.
I know. And we're trying out kickers. That's where we're at this week. We're trying out kickers.
Yikes.
All right. The team you are most confident hits the under other team implied total. I wanted to throw this out there because Dallas's implied point total is at 25.3. 6-point home favorites against the Giants. Are they that good? Are
Cowboys?
They that good to be implied for 25 points?
I think there's going to be a lot of ceiling games from Dallas this year. I think it'll be kind of inconsistent. But we talked about this with Jaden and Washington last week, is like that Giants front four can take over a game, and the Cowboys offensive line I think is considered largely like pretty good. They're not elite, they're not terrible, like they're pretty good. So I think it's just going to be a matter of like how they handle that. But I see why it's there. Dallas at home. Dak played really well in that Thursday night game. The box score wasn't good, but Dak played incredibly well. So yeah, I don't have a strong take, honestly.
Do you feel like the line would change if Jackson Dart is named the starter?
Well, they already said Russ is going to start.
Dang it. All right. Well, Dallas is definitely a team that I'm skeptical of that line already.
Okay. I see it. Makes sense.
All right.
I'm going to go with a team that was just incredible last week and take their under. Who saw Pittsburgh and the Jets going for 60-plus points?
It's the game you needed, man, like we said.
So funny. If you missed how bad the slate was from a scoring perspective, on the main slate, games were 11-1 to the under. The only one that went over was Pittsburgh and the Jets, which closed at, I think, at like 37 was the total. So one of those weird slates. But this is a classic, just like, I'm not sure I believe what I just saw kind of thing from Pittsburgh having that outlier performance. I'm going to take under 21.5. I think the Seattle defense is going to be very, very good. We saw them have a nice game against the Niners in week 1. They were number 1 in pressure rate, was Seattle last week. So you get that. And on the other side, with Darnold and Seattle, it's pretty clear Darnold's going to kind of manage the game. They're going to run a bunch. I think this is going to be one of those under games. And so I'll take under on Pittsburgh here. I think the the overreaction to week 1, I'm not buying.
All right, so you brought up Seattle. I wanted to bring that up right before we take a break. Did you see that they didn't use any pre-snap motion at all?
That's weird. Because
the
Saints used it a lot last year with Kubiak.
I know. And then JSN was everything for the team, 83% of the team's total receiving yards, a 57% target share. Like, they can't keep functioning that way.
No. Certainly
so
not.
I circled JSN's name. We'll talk about him in a second, as he's only 6K, but the way that offense functioned, they probably should have won the game from a defensive standpoint. The defense looked great.
Yeah.
But the offense with Sam Darnold looked like every single play, the goal was to throw to JSN. By the way, Cooper Kupp is on the team. It took him like 3 quarters to be involved.
I was going to say, he only had, I think, 1 catch, right?
He had, I think it was 2, but
2.
I like his first catch came in the 4th quarter. Like, oh, Cooper Kupp, their free agent signing. It was just a weird team. So, and Charbonnet was good, and Ken Bone wasn't.
Yeah, Charbonnet led in touches, or carries at least.
He had the highest rush success rate of any running back this past week, by the way.
Yeah, Ken Bone was 10 for 20 as a runner. I mean, I think good. So we'll talk. I'm actually going to do that segment on one of our Dynasty shows coming up, so check that out. But I don't know. It's one of those classic, like, you want to call your shots early. Like, do you believe this is the actual split and Charbonnet can take over, or just force 50-50? Or was it like, Walker had missed so much time off and on because of his foot in camp? Was that the reason? So I don't think we'll know until we're 3 weeks in or something. But yeah, obviously, if you're a Ken Walker truther like Mike is, this is not ideal.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Salary Standouts.
Every Tuesday, we give you our first little taste at the upcoming main slate and some players that stand out to us. We'll look at the salaries. We likely have overlooked somebody. Okay, this is vibes-based. This is spreadsheet-based. But throughout the week, we'll feel it out, and then on Friday, we will give you our cash picks and all of our picks on the website if you are a DFS Pass member. DFSpass.com. You can also use a promo code DFSPod.
Steal from our company.
We don't do promo codes for our company very much.
But this one we do.
Well, like, promo codes in like the podcasting world is like, use my promo code, you'll save 10%, and then I'll get a kickback. When we say promo code, what we're saying is you will get it cheaper and Betz and I will get $0 from it.
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure that people understand there's nothing we get from a promo code other than we're trying to help you out. At quarterback, you mentioned it earlier, but the heavy hitters, the quarterbacks that we want to play in DFS, the quarterbacks you took early in best ball if you went elite quarterback, are all available to us. Early in the week, do you have a favorite? Because Lamar's my favorite so far.
I think with the team total, and you just have to, I think, lean Lamar. If it was like these guys were priced, $500 apart or something, then I could see you talking yourself into somebody else. But Josh Allen, who I'll never say bad things about, but he's $100 more, and then Jalen Hurts is $200 cheaper. If it was a bigger gap, I'd probably lean those guys. I think it's Lamar. He's just going to project so well given the rushing and the team total and all those things.
Dude, in my spreadsheets, he's looking good too.
Okay, love that.
Yeah, you'll have all the stats available to you in the first look, but 1.33 fantasy points per dropback is pretty much breaking the system. If you wanted to go lower and just mention some other guys that are cheaper, Dak Prescott, they have the team implied total we talked about earlier. Justin Fields was really, really good.
He was great
in week 1 as a passer, not just as a runner. So that was encouraging. Trevor Lawrence is 5,600. People are going to be playing him in cash, but in tournaments, I feel like his name is going to be clicked on again. Drake May is 5,200. And then we got to at least throw out Danny Dimes. I mean, what? It was fun to play him in. Yeah, it was fun to play him in tournaments. That means he's going to fall flat on his face this week against Denver.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, brutal matchup. You go from probably, we don't have like enough data obviously after 1 week to know like who's the best matchup for this position and whatever in fantasy, but I think the Dolphins are going to be one of the best matchups all year. you go from that to now the Broncos. Yeah, that's a tough sell for me.
Danny Dimes is definitely the type of guy that, like, if I'm counting on you, this was a terrible decision. I went way too wrong on this. On FanDuel, I just got to mention Hurts at 8.3. If he's going to run the way that he did, they're going to run the way they did in week 1. That's a really, really good tag. At running back this week, CMC is awesome. He's everything. We said it last week. We'll say it again. He's only 7.5. So for his workload, he should be at least 8K. He really should be 8,500. But it's a great matchup against the Saints, a team last week that we said, hey, play James Conner because of the Saints. But expected fantasy points per game last week, it's him and then this giant chasm between everybody else. So CMC is going to be the top play no matter what. If you weight your opportunities, you think about how we do rush attempts and then count targets as 2 or 2.5. He essentially saw 44.5 weighted opportunities last week.
That's ridiculous.
It's awesome. It's amazing. So he's going to show up as the top guy. Who else do you like this week?
Yeah, it's kind of the same names as last week. I think more of a tournament play, but I do want to point out Jahmyr Gibbs got cheaper. That's super interesting at 7,400. I think you can talk yourself into Achane again if you wanted to at 6,900. Chase Brown is 6,800. We talked about that. Jonathan Taylor's box score wasn't incredible, but he had an unreal role in that game. He's 6,700 and James Conner is 6,600. So again, I think a tough decision, kind of like who's your RB2 between those guys, but they all are going to project quite well. I will also throw out Travis Etienne is 5,700. I think that's going to be a popular click given his usage in week 1 and the Tank Bigsby trade.
All right, let's bring up the king because Derrick Henry is 8,200. They have the highest team implied total. He's good. 182 total yards last week. How do we handle Henry? So for some people, we've literally had the same adage for the last, 5 years on this podcast about Derrick Henry, is if he's very popular, play him in cash. If he's not popular, play him in tournaments, which means you're pretty much going to play Derrick Henry every single slate, but it just kind of depends on the format. It also kind of depends on the weather, which we know it's not snowing right now. So any Derrick Henry takes it's early in the season.
I think the weather model's, the snow model's broken, dude. It wasn't snowing this weekend. My man went off. I think he's probably more of a tournament play, just given the pricing and the fact that there's Lamar, yeah. I can see shying away from playing them together in cash, but I do think he's an interesting tournament play, especially if you want to use it as leverage off Lamar. That makes a lot of sense to me.
All right. Kamara 6.1, Chuba 6K. They're both going to project super well. Kamara was out there for a ton of routes, but like the target share was very different. The targets per out run was only at 7%, but he's still involved. So like Kamara, Chris Olave is 4,900, which is sad, super sad, but he's there. Juwan Johnson. I bet people are going to be playing as Saint this week. Do you think it's going to be Juwan?
Maybe. There's a lot of viable, I think, cheaper tight ends, so I don't know that it's going to get crazy out of hand with roster percentage, but I think so. I think one of them you could talk yourself into.
Chris Olave 4,900 is just so
it's like
incredible.
Shocking.
I know, and because of that, I want to play him. But I also know I have a history with this man.
Dude, it was, if you weren't watching the game and you just got the alerts of like Chris Olave headed to the medical tent, it was like, oh, are we really doing this again? Did you see the play where he got hit by Will Johnson in the corner?
No.
Oh my, you have to watch it, dude. I thought Johnson's helmet like went through Olave's chest.
No.
It was so, dude, he got rocked. But no concussion, we're good there, which is great. So we'll see. Yeah, it at one point, players get to a point where you're just like, I don't know, close your eyes and he's good. Like, how bad could it really be? I think kind of a scary click in cash, but 4,900, man, he's so cheap.
All right, wide receiver. Lots of different places you can go. Jamar Chase's price did not move at all, so 8,100. It's probably one of those things where people are like, I'm not playing him in cash this week, but I'm going to stack up that game for tournaments with the highest total on the week. CeeDee Lamb, 7.8. I don't know if you saw the next day after the game, working with the jugs machine, working on after practice on his hands.
I mean, this guy's not going to drop a ball the rest of the year.
I don't care about drops.
No, it's just that they changed the game kind of a lot.
Yes.
Like, they easily could have won that game if he didn't drop one or two of those balls. Obviously not his fault that they lost, but...
What I mean is, I don't care in DFS.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to say that do not make decisions based on CeeDee Lamb having some drops last week about whether to play him this week.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So both Bengals guys are going to be clickable this week. T. Higgins, 6,100, Chase at 8,100. The cheaper guys, though, is what we love in cash. So who stands out to you early in the week?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough click if it's Mac Jones, but if Purdy is out there, Ricky Pearsall is only 5,300. Obviously, no Kittle. We are thinking potentially no Juwan Jennings. We'll see. Demarcus Robinson still suspended. He saw 7 targets last week. I think that number could go up in this spot, given the injuries around him. So I think Ricky Pearsall is interesting. And then Hollywood Brown is going to be an interesting discussion point. At 5,200, it's not like he's free, but if he's going to see, 8-9 targets, that's hard to pass up from Patrick Mahomes. So he's definitely in play given what's going on around him in Kansas City.
Okay, so JSN 6K. The really, really cheap guys, though, this week is like Cedric Tillman at 4.3. He's going to project pretty well. A really cheap I'm going to mess this up. Alec Iomanor.
Is it Iomanor or Manor? A Manor. I don't know.
Andy calls him epic, but he's 3,200, and he technically was operating as the Titans wide receiver 1. If you look at like per route metrics, 28% targets per route run, he saw 37% of the team's first 3 targets. He is 3,200. So put him in the cash pool. I still think it's tough to use 1 week for a rookie and say this is what he will be, but he's a starting wide receiver. He only went 2 for 13 on 7 targets. So it was a bad outcome, but 3,200, we'll take that type of stuff. I think those are the main names early in the week. Tedero McMillan is still cheap, 5,400. Yep. His involvement was pretty good. Keon Coleman is probably the name I want to bring up. He's 5,100 on DK, 5,300 on FanDuel. He ran around on 94% of the dropbacks, which was way higher than what he did last year. I mean, he's an adventure, though. Like, I watched that whole game, and I feel like huge plays and then plays where I go, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to bank on his consistency, but he seems to be the wide receiver 1 that we want in Buffalo.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously game script helped where they were trailing so much in the second half that they had to throw a ton and all that. And the fluky tipped touchdown definitely inflates the box score, but he was on the field a bunch. He made plays. He saw targets. It's hard to pass that up. And I don't know that I want to say, oh, the year 2 breakout is definitely going to be here, but there's a chance it is happening, and maybe you want to play it before you really know it's there. And on FanDuel especially, where I do struggle to see consistent, insane reception scores from him, but I could see blow-up games where he scores a touchdown and has the big yardage. And at 5,300 on FanDuel, that fits quite nice. So taking on the Jets, I think he is definitely in play. 11 targets for a 26% market share and 33% of the air yards. So pretty good usage there from Keon.
All right, at tight end, a bunch of cheap options this week. Juwan Johnson at 3.4 of the Saints. Harold Fannin Jr., rookie tight end of the Browns. Apparently Browns tight end 1, Harold Fannin at 3.1. Chig, love when we get to bring up Chig at 3.3. And then my boy Tyler Warren at 4.5, an absolute dog. I can't say this enough. Daniel Jones went on the Pat McAfee show, and they started talking about Tyler Warren. And he didn't even get to finish his sentence. Daniel Jones interrupts him, and he goes, dog.
Yes. I missed that. I'm going to have to go watch
so
it.
Much. It's amazing. It's amazing that, he wasn't asked, is he a dog? It was mid-sentence, Pat was still talking, and Daniel Jones just goes, dog.
Love it. Love it. I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. And what's so encouraging, I think, if you've been into Tyler Warren, best ball, or, played him last week, and you watch some of the preseason, it was very, very clear. The game plan is we have to get him involved very early, and you saw that right away. So I do think there's a potential where for him to really pop off in fantasy for a huge game, I think you need the Colts to probably be trailing and be pushed back and forth. Otherwise, Warren's going to be a very fun play every week. He only moved up $100 on DK salary. So Denver is obviously not an easy matchup, and we could definitely see Daniel Jones kind of come back down to earth, but the talent is just, too good to pass up.
Trey McBride on FanDuel. There's a lot of different ways to go. I think in tournaments last week we said you have to pay up, or at least be willing to pay up. And then, Tyler Warren and Kyle Pitts were like two of the guys we talked about the most. It's interesting this week because Kelsey and Kittle is going to be off this slate, but he's technically on it. Kelsey is like, what the heck do we do with him?
Only
Seriously
5K,
though,
man.
I think his target share was like 10%.
If you told me no Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy's going to play, 2 snaps or whatever it was, and he's still only going to have 4 targets, I would say that's impossible. So, in a game where Mahomes dropped back a ton, they were losing most of the game. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Weird.
Absolute losers against the Chargers.
Dude, that Chargers pass rate, man. Woo! We'll see. We'll see if it sticks.
Dude, I'm ready to get hurt. So, I'm excited to get hurt.
Keenan went off. Man, what a great night for you.
Dude, Ladd looked great. The whole team looked good. Cuge looked great. By the way, I looked at my exposures. Cuge is my wide receiver 5 in best ball exposures.
I mean, hang the banner after 1 week.
That's why I've already retired.
Yeah.
I've actually drawn money out of my retirement account because of it.
Because you're going to be able to replace it, in 4 months.
There you go. Defense. I don't love the punt options.
Yeah. They're not incredible. I think the Rams the Rams pass rush is legit.
The Rams were the ones at 3.1 that definitely stand out.
Yeah, taking on Cam Ward, who, it was a pretty up and down debut, not to be surprised, obviously, against Denver, but the Rams make sense. I think in the same game, the Titans are just cheap enough that it's probably okay at 2,400. And then if Mac Jones is starting without his weapons, I think New Orleans at 2,500 is fine. Obviously, it's not like an exciting play, but given the price, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways to punt. If you want to do it, I just don't love it early in the week, but maybe it'll feel more comfortable because I don't click my defense till the very end.
Right.
So maybe I'll start filling out my lineup, and then I'll get to Thursday and Friday and go, oh, well, I think I am going to have to punt here. So make sure you check out all of our DK, our FanDuel picks, all of those things you can find in the DFS Pass. And then before we close, we didn't mention this last podcast, but we do have some tournaments and some different contests that we throw out on DraftKings. We love DraftKings. They've been a great sponsor in the past. They're not really promoting their DFS contests like they have in the past. They've also taken away certain contests that we used to play, like the Engage 8. Dude, you can't find it anymore. I had a bunch of people message me in Discord like, where's this tournament you talked about on the podcast? I'm not in it. So who knows? But if you go to ballersdfs.com, you can play in tournaments with us and win our money. Jason was in a tournament on the first Thursday night, won some money from people.
Yeah, I think he took 3rd in that one. So take our money, take Jason's money. Should be fun.
Ballersdfs.com. It will direct you to our DraftKings league, which is called Fantasy Footballers DFS, Borg plus Betz. We get to open different contests, play against you guys. You're some fun people, and you love taking our money. Betz, tell everyone goodbye.
Yes, sir. Going to be back on a normal Tuesday show, previewing a little bit of the main slate. We'll talk about more of that on Friday when we're back late in the week. We'll talk to you then. Until then, Kyle's got a piece of play. I'll have my cash picks up. Lots of content in the DFS Pass. Check it out. We'll catch you guys on Friday. See ya.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.